Dr. Brown, how are you, Dr. Brown? We interrupted a very interesting facilities work session, and but we do have a special meeting called for in between our work session for facilities and our work session for finance, and we do need a quorum for that, and I assume we have a quorum at this point.
Rob, I just received a message from Moira saying she was having some difficulty, so I think we just might want to give it a quick minute to make sure all board members can join. Are you here, Moira?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah. No, it said the meeting had reached its maximum number of participants. 300. But,
well, Moira, we're never at the maximum unless you're a part of that maximum. So
thank you, Rob.
Right.
I still have not seen Eldred join up, or who else are we missing?
I think everybody else is here.
Just okay. E, right? But why don't we'll just slowly get started here. This is a special voting meeting that has been called for this evening. This is our work session night, actually, and our regular board meeting will be next week on Tuesday at the regular time. There's really a limited agenda for this board special voting meeting. And Dr. Brown, you just want to give me a rundown of why we interrupted our facilities work session and why we put in a special voting meeting tonight, and then we can move on with the business.
No, I'm here, guys. I just had to be taken off mute.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ainsley, for the opportunity. Yes, it is a special meeting, and I do wish to share with the board why we brought everyone together. If I could take us first back to March 13th, 2020, and I remember sharing with the board then how difficult of a day that was. It was the toughest day of my tenure as superintendent, and my toughest day as a 20+ year educator, as we needed to close our school buildings. I remember saying at the press conference how the school closures would exacerbate the inequities that have plagued our industry for centuries. I remember saying at the press conference that this could be tough for our community for so many reasons, including the significant death toll and the learning loss for young people. Today is tougher. I'm still grappling with that in many ways. Today is tougher than on March 13th because now I know the impact that these decisions are having on young people and our communities. I know there are young people who are hurting. I know that not being in our school buildings, every day we delay opening up a school building hurts a young person in ways that many cannot recover from. That is a fact. And for anyone who wishes to email or call or tell me how tough this is, please know I carry that weight every day. And I'm carrying the weight of the adults, many of the adults who are not talking about how this is impacting young people. So yeah, this is tough, Mr. Ainsley. This is tough for our community to say that, to come to the board this evening with academic calendar recommendation that will delay the opening of our school buildings, having been closed since March 13th. Mr. Ainsley, we wish to begin the academic year, 2021 academic year, in a full distance learning model for all students. And that is different from what we've been planning for most of the summer. And we said to our community to be flexible with us, as we knew that our plans may change as we monitor the data, as we monitor staffing, as we monitor a lot of moving parts. So we knew we needed to be flexible, but no one could prepare for the day when we would need to delay even longer to get our babies back into a space. So yes, we're coming with an academic calendar that would delay the opening of our schools. We would start instruction on September the 14th. Prior to the 14th, we would have significant professional development with our staff on how to be even better in distance learning and virtual learning. We have yet to conduct significant PD in this way. We will have that time to do so. We will have an opportunity to do professional development on how to be an anti-racist organization and be culturally responsive and inclusive in both the in-person and a virtual environment. So we will have time to do significant PD prior to the beginning of instruction, according to this academic calendar. This academic calendar looks like we would be moving forward with in-person instruction for those who've chosen to engage in it on October the 5th. Now, folks may be wondering why we made this shift. There are a number of reasons why we're needing to make this shift to a later start and to moving to a virtual experience for all initially. First, there have been complications with staffing and scheduling. We are an organization, and I've been taught and brought up to believe that who you be in time of the crisis is who you be. It's much more important than what you do. And we are an organization that has valued voice and choice, thinking and innovation. And we have attempted, and we have been faithful to taking an innovative approach to reopening in the midst of a pandemic by offering the kind of choice that we've offered. I know it was bold, I know it was risky, and we have been faithful to offering that voice and choice because that's who we are as an organization. That has created some significant challenges for us. Challenges that it will take us a bit longer to figure out how to navigate and to solve. So that is one issue. Other issues we know, and we heard loud and clear from our community on a number of topics: staffing, reopening planning, face mask wearing. We've heard from our community. I've read every single email, every single comment, and so have Ms. Talcott. So we've heard from our community, and there are a significant number of folks in our community who have real concerns about the transitions and the mobility that will be taking place and has taken place in our community that will affect the infection rates. And at some point I want to get to a conversation about infection rates and safety, but we have many community members who are very concerned about that and have been urging us to slow things down or to not open at all. We've heard you. This delay gives us an opportunity to monitor that data, to get a look at that data, to study that data even more so. This delay allows for us, and we have our school district, along with tens of thousands of others across this country, are having issues with their supply chain. I wish I'd owned stock in the MERV 13 filters before this pandemic, because now every school district in the country, and probably every organization in the country, is attempting to get their hands on those filters to ensure that the HVAC systems in their organizations are working well and to the standards that we say we want them to be. So we're having a tough time getting them. We thought we could get them in before the beginning of school, but that would be a risk. Now with this delay, we are fairly certain that we will have those filters in and installed prior to in-person experiences continuing. In addition to that, we're in the midst of a significant capital improvement project. The same supply chain issues that we're experiencing as a school district attempting to get those filters, our construction managers are having similar issues with their supply chains also, on getting a number of supplies. And that has delayed our projects. Particularly at the high school, we have some issues at Caroline. So this delay gives us an opportunity to get those projects done, because we will not open our buildings until they're safe. And having our HVAC systems, our septic systems, everything operating as well as they've ever operated, because that is what we promised to our community. It's something we have to commit to, and that's going to take us some additional time. So those are some of the key reasons for slowing down our opening for in-person instruction. But please know, our school district is not shut down. Instruction will begin, and it will begin on September the 14th. And it will be better than it was last spring, because our educators we have some amazing educators. They've had time to think about this, learn from others all over the country, and we will engage in significant PD to prepare. But I'll go back to this one is tough, because I know what it's doing to our babies. And I can't wait to get them back in our schools. And I'm asking our community right now to be patient and I recognize your frustrations. I'm asking our community to trust us that we're going to do right by all. And I'm asking our community to be forgiving of us having to change up at this moment, knowing that the scramble is going to cause folks. But please know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't have to. And I will continue to read every email, every thought, every suggestion. We will continue to monitor the data. We're looking at school districts in this area, in the state, and across the country. And you all can do the Google searches. You're seeing how these reopenings are happening across our country right now. We must be better. So again, we're in the midst of a crisis. This shift in our academic calendar is in response to the crisis that we're still navigating. But I want people to sit with this for a minute. This is not a good decision. I don't know what a good decision is anymore. It's a decision. This is not something I'm happy about. I have no great options to put in front of our board. Let's just be clear about that. But what I do know, if it was a way to bring our babies back tomorrow, I would do that. If it was a way to bring them back on time, I would do that too. And right now I'm asking for us to delay this a bit so that we can do it right. So that's why we're here, Mr. Ainsley. We're here to take any questions, hear your concerns, hear from our community as we continue to grapple with this. It seems like all day, every day since last March. And I don't see an end to that, but that's our commitment to the young people and families in this community. Thank you for the opportunity.
Very good, Dr. Brown. I appreciate that. We board members, obviously, well, not obviously, but we will have an opportunity to discuss this topic when we get there, and that will be under school district business. So I'd hold your questions for Dr. Brown and Lily and the team until we get to that point. Back to the agenda. We are in public session. We have a quorum. Really, there's no modification to this agenda. So we do have a public comment period. So Sean, I believe we're going to do public comment for a bit. Typical meeting, we have public comment for 30 minutes, and then move on with the rest of the agenda. I believe that we are going to go ahead and have public comment. There is public comment for next week and our regular board meeting, the opportunity to speak to the board with the board then. But I think we can go ahead. We'll do 30 minutes now, and then hopefully move on to our discussion on the academic calendar. And if there is not 30 minutes, obviously not 30 minutes of public comment, we'll move on with our agenda for this evening. There is a finance work session that will follow this meeting, and obviously, I say again, obviously, much of the discussion in finance will be regarding reopening the schools and what is costing to do that. But we'll get to that after we finish this meeting. So Sean, I think is that the plan, Sean?
Yeah, and to the community members who are participating and listening in this meeting, there are multiple ways. One, you can always contact the board clerk directly. If you take a look at the agenda that's been posted on board docs, you will find Trisha's email as well as phone number. ICSD has a Let's Talk portal. So if your question does not get answered this evening, or if you have an additional question after this evening, please use the Let's Talk portal. And I feel in this regard, I can speak on behalf of my board members. Similar to Dr. Brown and Ms. Talcott, we also read every email, every comment. And so please contact board members directly, either as a group or individual board members. If you have relationships, we are more than, our job as volunteers and as elected officials is to engage in dialogue and conversation. So that we will continue to do. For this format and this platform, again, not ideal, but this is the new reality we find ourselves in. There are multiple ways to indicate that you want to participate in public comment. You can send a chat if you have access. It will not go to the entire group that's participating. It will only go to the host, which is the board clerk. You can also use the raise hand feature if you have accessibility via a laptop or a computer to make that happen. Otherwise, please feel free to send questions and we will find ways to address all those questions at some point in time. And so at this point in time, I do see that we have one person who would like to speak, and my apologies if I mispronounce any name, please forgive me, but Laura Batten, and I'll ask Trisha to unmute Laura. I will also say that there will be a 3-minute timer. The way in which the public comment traditionally works is that public has 3 minutes to be able to make sure that we can hear from as many voices as possible. So on the screen, you will see a 3-minute timer. That is not our way of trying to limit conversation, but to ask you then after 3 minutes to engage in conversation in a different medium. So please feel free. Tricia, if you can unmute Laura, that would be great.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Somebody
We can.
Okay. I have something written down, which now I can no longer see. Hold on a second. Okay, my comment is to address the fact that the teachers and not enough teachers coming back. Our community has proven month after month that we can keep COVID at bay. I'm not naive in thinking that we've done away with the virus, but we can, with the proper measures, live our lives, and we must. The rest of our country looks at our numbers with envy. No deaths, no hospitalizations, cases tied to specific unsafe practices like non-social distance parties. And when someone at Green Star and Wegmans had COVID, others did not get it because of mask wearing and proper protocols. And certainly we have the arrival of the Cornell students, but what the university is doing is unparalleled in our country. One of the reasons they are doing it is to keep us, the citizens of Ithaca, safe, so we can send our children to school. It's worth noting that while students provide us an important economic boost, they don't have a huge impact on the health of K-12 students. Those who will be interacting with students, the faculty and staff, are being tested twice a week. And now the news that Ithaca College will not return in the fall. So my question is, what more do teachers need to return? Is it if it's a vaccine for all, that might not happen for another year, and we have 6 known cases. Does it have to be 0? There's a quote attributed to Winston Churchill about the arts and the importance of rebuilding after World War II, which is what are we fighting for? And I feel the same is true here, that our community has done so well, and what could be more essential than education? And isn't this why we're working so hard? Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Greatly appreciate it. I have my apology. There's a hand raised. Sue Mann, I'm going to unmute now for 3 minutes.
My question is, with this delay, it seems that it's even more important than ever before to support the creation of family pods. This is happening across the district, and it's primarily being fueled by families with resources, financially, also with connections, with the time, with the skills to bring the pods together. It is the families who are the least resourced who are most disadvantaged by this delay. What will the district do to support the creation of pods so that podding is equitable and not limited only to those families who have the means to do so?
Thank you very much, Sue. And I should make mention of the board process, which is that we have public comment for 30 minutes and hear from all the public that we can. And then there are board responses at the end. And so board responses will happen after we hear from folks. Up next is Yael Levette. And I know I mispronounced it. My apologies, Yael. But can we unmute Yael?
I did not raise my hand. I did not mean to talk. I'm sorry.
Understood. Up next, Karen LaFace.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I wanted to raise my hand, but I didn't think I had done it yet, so I'm not as well prepared as I'd like to be. But I just want to make a couple of comments, just thinking quickly. And some other people spoke about this. There have been many school districts throughout the country that opened and then closed suddenly. And the ones I'm familiar with are in states where the infection rate is greater than 10%. For example, Georgia, I believe, has an 11% infection rate. And Governor Cuomo has been saying for several weeks that the guidelines for our state are that schools may open if the infection rate is less than 5%. And I believe we have been less than 1% for a very long time. So while I understand concerns that people have, I was certainly disappointed to hear that there will be not necessarily the delay, but I'm more concerned about the possibility of not starting in person at all. I think it's really critical for kids to meet the teachers, or at least to be with other children. It didn't go really well for my middle schooler to have virtual teaching because for a variety of reasons, but he probably his teachers only met with him for 1 hour a week, and much of it was optional. So if we do go virtual, I hope that it will be a longer school day and more interaction with teachers. I guess that's all I would like to say for now. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Karen. At this point in time, I'm going to go through the raised hands. So Rebecca Waring.
Hi. Yeah, a couple things. I apologized if this was made clear in the beginning. My internet's a little crappy where I am, so it was cutting out, but I don't feel like I really heard an explanation of why we're doing the delay. I mean, obviously because of COVID, and there was some mention of places that needed HVAC to be brought up to par or something. But I would really appreciate hearing a little bit more about, you know, what the staffing is looking like at the schools and the status of things required for the safety of the schools. And I think maybe along with that, in my perspective, I'd like to know what I can do to help. I think this is a massive burden for the school district to try to solve all of these problems. And I'd love to hear more about what's going on. Just so I understand, and also so perhaps more of us can be involved, because I think you've got an amazing community of parents with a lot of different capabilities and things to offer. And I'd love to be able to find a way to try to help solve some of these problems, whatever those problems may be that aren't really clear to me yet.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'm sure we will revisit the ideas that were stated by Dr. Brown in the beginning, but we'll come back to that. Andrew McCracken.
There we go, yeah. The host. All right, there we go. I hope y'all can all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh shoot, our internet I think has gone. All right, you can hear me. Perfect. On behalf of LACS students, I was wondering, the question that we got was, does the board believe that surrounding districts will make similar moves to increase safety in their schools? So like, does the board believe that surrounding districts will, I think by similar moves, we're thinking about delaying schools before for a semester reopening, and also providing students and staff with PPE. Does the board think that surrounding districts will also take those measures?
Thank you, Andrew. That's just a question that we will try to address during the board response. Up next is Ariel Casper.
Thank you. My question is, will the school district be supporting internet at all? You know, where I live, we have spotty internet, and any support from the school district would be good. And is there a plan in place to test the teachers frequently, or what is the teacher testing looking like? That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ariel. I would say absolutely that there has been significant support. Please contact either your building principal, and we will find ways to make sure that we continue to support folks who have access to internet and Wi-Fi. I'm going to do up next says Happy Shiny. I may mute immediately if it's, I wish it'd be helpful if you could say your name so we can make sure it's in the public record.
Can you hear me?
We can. Can you state your name for us, please?
Yes, it's Mary Major Weisbrot. I'm a one-on-one aide at South Hill. Sorry, I didn't know this would automatically boot me into my gaming mode. I had a statement, and my question was actually answered by the last question about teacher testing. And my statement is, I'm glad to live in a community where our numbers are low, because the people who live here have been very responsible. Cornell, Ithaca College, the school district responded almost immediately to a growing serious danger. And I also appreciate the work that's been going on all summer long to try to get us to a spot where we can open. But as we've all seen, this is a volatile situation. The numbers are not in any way solid or safe right now when we come to areas that are opening up. And it's not just the states where the percentages are high. Numbers are going up everywhere, whether their numbers were low to begin with or higher, they're still climbing. And what I'd like to do, absent of any strong national leadership in this direction, is take the advantage that we have with our low numbers and keep them that way. We know that people are dying from this. We know that people are ending up with serious repercussions, even if they do survive this. Nobody is going to be killed. Nobody is going to have long-term neurological, musculoskeletal side effects by us slowing down our opening. I appreciate the work that teachers and administrators and the board have done to work with the utmost caution for our students, our staff, and our community at large to keep us as safe as possible. And I'd really like to encourage everyone to think that way and to find the ways that they can help make this work for their families and for their community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Next, we have Benjamin Hutton.
Thanks, Sean. So my question is basically, so a number of different reasons for the delays were given. I'm wondering if we can sort of get insight and specificity into, were one of those the major delay and other ones, or major reason, others were minor reasons, or other, I mean, to put it more cynically, is one of them like the major reason and the other is the reason you're giving us to make us feel okay with it, right? I don't necessarily am implying anything, just would like to know how important each of those reasons was. And then second, would we consider opening certain buildings that were more ready to be open earlier than others? And then related to that, can we get data? I think somebody's already asked, like, how's the numbers on teachers and students going building by building? Like, are some buildings, they've got their problem solved on the teacher-student ratio problem, on the HVAC problem, and other buildings are still a ways off? So can we get access to that data building by building? And then I guess the other criteria was how everything else is going. What would we be looking to see? What are we looking for from Cornell? What are we looking for from the surrounding community? Like's always been said, like has already been said, you've got the governor's given his criteria. What other criteria are we putting on top of the governor's criteria? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Up next is Jess Sapansky. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes, you did. So I have a student who's going to be entering kindergarten for the first time this year, and he's very excited, but we have not seen his school or been able to do any of the fun stuff that he's been looking forward to. And I'm just wondering, again, what date will the possibility to go in person be? And if the school district has any ideas on what, like, we can do with our child in the meantime for an extra month of being off, because we have a 2-parent household where both of us work, and you know, daycare is not readily available right now. And that's pretty much all I have.
Jess, thank you for sharing. Again, I want to reiterate what Dr. Brown said. We are not stopping our schooling. Our anticipated date, if the board approves the proposed change to the calendar, would be October 5th for in-person classes. So we'll talk more about that as the evening goes on. Jonathan Butcher is next.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jonathan.
Great. So a couple things have already been said, but I think it doesn't hurt to reiterate. First of all, I was really excited about Ithaca's policy when it was proposed for the opportunity for a choice between fully in-person and fully online education. And in communicating with my colleagues all around the country, I felt like they were envious of the bold and courageous decision as an opportunity to preserve our educational environment. So I was pretty sad to hear about this quick pivot. I've heard some reasons I didn't realize before, but there was a couple reasons that I did hear about in a petition online as well as a radio program yesterday, and I was curious to hear people's thoughts about that relative to the decisions that are being made. You know, one of the things I think about with these decisions is that the agency and resources to bear the consequences of the decisions are very unequitably distributed. So it's not just the ability to choose, but it's whether you can actually endure the consequences. So like adults can basically monitor their own safety a lot easier than children. They can feed themselves, they can coordinate their internet and blah, blah, blah. So any of these choices, I feel like we really need to have that, in addition to thinking about you know, whether everybody has choice. I also think that there's danger in sort of waiting a month to learn what the data from other people are, because none of that's going to really inform our own implementation procedure, especially if that data all stays underneath the 5% threshold, because it's all going to be allowed. So really, I think it'd be great for us to develop an opportunity to generate implementation related data, like perhaps a volunteer cohort of people that could, you know, go through the motions in school to be able to robustly generate, you know, plans for student-teacher interactions. I also heard something about surveillance testing. I really think it's inappropriate to do in young children, especially if the teachers aren't willing to do it themselves. I think it's a great teaching opportunity for the adults to model the children. And I also think with respect to expanding choice between cohorts, it would be great if the teacher and staff perhaps have to work amongst themselves to figure out how to match or meet different cohort percentages so that we can provide the critical educational experiences we all know is very important and that the tax dollars pay for. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Up next is Henry Smith.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you all for giving me a chance to speak. I wanted to start off by saying I was excited to hear that in-person was going to be an option. I have a 5th grader this year, and last year as a 4th grader, we had a very poor experience with distance learning. I don't know that he learned very much at all, other than how to be really frustrated with internet access and Zoom as an application. So my question and my concern is the professional development that Dr. Brown spoke to at the beginning, in terms of getting the teachers ready to move into a completely different realm. They had some practice with it this spring, and just my personal take on that was, you know, it was like watching a classroom of 4-year-olds lick their computer screens. It was not pretty. And I just don't want a repeat of that. And luckily I'm working from home, but I can't homeschool my son at the same time. So I can't stress enough professional development here in terms of, some of it's merely just facilitating an online meeting. I mean, that should be easy, but you know, we're talking, in my case, elementary school students. So that's shoving a 11-pound cat into a 10-pound sack when you've got kids that can turn the microphone to the speaker and create feedback and disrupt the entire class with technology. So professional development, professional development, professional development. I welcome hearing what steps are being taken there, and welcome going as strongly as you can in the direction of trying to make those virtual sessions productive. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time to speak.
Tricia, I believe Dr. Bradwell's computer just restarted or rebooted. I'm hoping you can see who's raised a hand. I'm unable to see that. So if you can see, or Emily, you can continue to call the names.
I see that there's Donna. Gonna unmute Donna. Donna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question to the board is, not anything has ever been addressed as far as the bus drivers and the bus riders.
Excuse me, could we have your last name as well, please?
Sure, it's Donna Hahuth. I am a bus driver. Our concern is, and I've heard from several people, is the fact that I understand that the schools will be having a special HVAC filter put in for the schools to filter out anything that might be coming in with the kids for their safety, as well as the parents and the staff. But nothing has ever been addressed to a child being put on the bus. And when they get on the bus, they're within a foot and a half of us. And we have no filtration system. We have riders that are going to be directly in contact with students. And there's never, in all this program that people have been talking about, addressed the safety of the drivers and the riders. So my concern is, being a union rep, and I want to reiterate that I've had quite a few people be in contact with me, is how are the bus drivers and the riders going to be protected from this? Unlike the school staff who has rooms and they have room to move around, where people on the bus do not have any room to move around. I thank you for your time to listen to this. I have a lot of more questions, but this is the main concern that the drivers and the riders have at this point.
Thank you, Donna. We have Alyssa Apsell up next.
No fucking reply.
Donna, I want to reiterate that we will have a reply at board responses.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Hello.
Okay. Hello? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can, Alyssa.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I'm actually an electrical engineering professor and I can't manage my Zoom call. I actually wanted to, first of all, thank Dr. Brown for his eloquent statement about the implications to the children involved here, because I think that's often lost and it's really critical. I think as we make decisions here, we have to keep in mind that there are serious implications to these children's futures, as well as their presence. There are serious implications to single parents. There are serious implications to families of essential workers who are under-resourced, and for children who are below, third or fourth grade. This online learning platform is very, very challenging, and basically involves full-time parental involvement. Many parents cannot be involved. So it is a very big challenge for that group of people. My main question, which kind of reflects back on what Laura Batten earlier said, is that we have been quite successful in Ithaca in terms of controlling this outbreak. And I wonder, in terms of bringing the teachers back into the classrooms and establishing some kind of sense of normalcy, since we've worked so hard on this, do we actually have metrics and standards that we're using? Because I haven't heard almost nothing about that. Are there numbers, are there percentages that we're looking at where we say this is okay and this isn't okay? Because right now it seems like it's based entirely on fear and entirely on, some people having this possibly rational, possibly irrational fear of something that might happen in the future, but no actual metrics. So I would like to, are there metrics, and can you share them with us? And if there aren't metrics, can we actually establish them and use those to actually determine what should happen going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And my apologies all, my computer wanted to shut down. We're not exempt from these sort of technological issues. I'm aware that we are 35 minutes into our public comment period. I'm gonna get some recommendations from our board members. I also realize that a number of questions that people wanna ask may be answered during the board responses and our conversations. And so there may be a process situation where we have some board responses and then come back to public comment to see if there's more before we make a vote. And so I'm looking to my board members and Rob, our board president, about how best to proceed. Should we try to continue for another 10 minutes and then go to board responses and see what happens?
Right, Sean, we're already past the 30-minute mark. Let's do 10 more minutes, but then let's get board responses, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss the calendar and have more back and forth and more depth. And that's so 10 more minutes, and obviously lots of opportunity for folks to speak out again on Tuesday and in between.
Great. Thanks, Rob. And again, remind folks there are multiple ways to have this conversation. Please check the email that went out that there you can contact folks in various ways. So Timothy Bale, I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Excuse me, Sean.
Yes, Moira.
Not to be a stickler, but according to our guidelines, our policy, we're actually supposed to vote to extend public comment.
That is correct. So
You're right,
I make
Mario,
a
we already
motion.
blew past that. So, but anyway, let's I'll need a motion and second, and we can roll call it.
I make a motion to continue public comment period for an additional 10 minutes.
Second.
Second by Chris. Tricia, if you could call the roll.
Sure. Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yes.
Nicole Lefebvre,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichlin,
Yes.
Patricia Wazalu.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder, Moira. Timothy Bale, or my apologies if I mispronounced your name.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. I'll be quick. Some of my comments were already expressed while in line. You know, I would reaffirm that we have had control of COVID in this community. Our community transmission rate has been exceedingly low. So to me, we have public health advice and we're not following the advice of the experts. I think it would be helpful for the board to, one, let me know and other parents know how we can help. If there are resource constraints that are making it harder for staff or participants to be vested in opening the schools, the board could tell us how we can mobilize to remedy that. And then also just be more specific, as others had stated, about what the criteria is that's causing the delay. The concern I have is if there's no clear reason to delay, then what's the clear reason to open in October? So if you could, as other people have said, just be more specific about what parameters we're concerned about at this time and what specifically needs to be done to get our kids back in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Henry Smith is next.
All right.
He already spoke.
I already spoke. Thank you.
My apologies. J.R. Keller.
Hi, at the risk of, thank you for, I'm J.R. Keller, at the risk of repeating what Timothy said. If our numbers still stay under control, I'm just wondering what the actual likelihood is that we're going to meet the staffing and construction requirements at the schools, or if we as parents should assume that we're going to be voting on another delay in another month. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuki Sarnowski. Yuki, I'm trying to unmute you. I don't know if something is happening. We'll return Betty Poole.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to concur with all of the statements that have been made by all the participants. However, I don't think anyone here has been or has asked about what about the staff and are they going to be paid? There are a lot of single mothers out there that, don't have the income and they look forward to this income. And I happen to be a grandparent. So, I would be the one homeschooling. And I was wondering if the board had considered what about the staff getting paid, and if not, between September and October 5th, if they're going to be paid or what.
Thank you, Betty. Chris Marks, and if that's not your name, please state your name for the record.
No, my name is Yoav Matya.
Please continue.
Okay, so my question concerns regarding, ever since July, we've effectively opened summer camps. So we have kids in various forms of educational classes. And my question is, also regarding the metrics. So we have not seen a rise in cases that came as a result of that. And my question is, why then are we waiting for October, as we have seen that when we do so responsibly and allow kids to return to educational frames but retain and make sure that they're safe with masks, why are we then so concerned about what happens in September? And I am aware of the fact that people have mentioned that Cornell is expected to open in September, so we're waiting like a month after Cornell opens. But effectively, I have spoken to several students, and I understand from them that you can count on one hand the number of courses that are going to be face-to-face. All of them, most of them, if not all of them, are going to be online. So I'm having a difficulty understanding what exactly is the difference between opening in September and opening in October. That's the first question. And the second question is what are the metrics that will tell us we can open in September or cannot? And what needs to happen in order to say, okay, so we have to close the schools because this is getting out of hand? Because like many people here mentioned, we have been a very responsible community and we have managed to keep the cases to a bare minimum. I think it's just, we should applaud ourselves. This is very impressive. And I think it is quite unprecedented. But the question remains, what are the metrics for opening or closing? So these are my two questions.
Thank you. We'll try to go back again to Chris Marks.
Hi, yes, this is Chris Marks. I just wanted to say that our family has actually already opted to remain virtual for the fall or the whole year. But I was still really relieved to hear that the school district was delaying the opening to finish the necessary upgrades needed to keep the kids safe and the staff safe. Our numbers in Ithaca have been very low, but that situation could change at any moment. And I think we're at a very tenuous time right now with the Cornell students returning, where we could see the impact of coronavirus changing dramatically with all those students returning. And even today we saw that IC has decided to, even though they had been planning to allow students to return, IC has now said they're going to be all virtual as well, which is, I think, great news. So I personally think this is a great idea, and I'm glad that COVID is being taken seriously, and I hope that, all of the, as many measures as possible can be taken to keep all the kids and the staff safe. Thanks.
How are we doing on time, Sean?
I believe this is the last one for what we offered. So Janice, please state your full name for the record.
I'm Janice Chang. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have a particular question. There's been a lot of discussion about HVAC in the schools, and I understand that there's an attempt to get MERV filters and possibly UV lights. We have not heard any details on actual airflow rates in the various buildings, and I'm wondering whether I've heard that you guys have been doing studies with trade and so on. Is it possible to publish those so that the boards and parents teachers, staff can see? A MERV filter is lovely, but if the airflow if you're not actually getting the air up there, it's not going to be filtering the viral particles out of the air. I guess another question is, if we wait until October to start school in person, and I understand the reasons for doing that, often by December, it's too cold to have your school windows open. So has the district considered the fact that, will the HVAC system bring in enough fresh air with all the windows closed? With the MERV filters, which will, I believe, I may be incorrect, but I believe the MERV filters actually slow down airflow because it's harder to draw air through them. So has that been considered? Can we see those numbers? That's one question. Another question is it possible for us to hear from the teachers? I don't know if they have an arm that sort of speaks anonymously about what teachers would need to feel comfortable to come back. Is it the HVAC system? Is it, do they simply, need a vaccine to be there? Some teachers. Can we get a handle on sort of what we can do to have as many teachers as possible feel comfortable, and staff as well? And I think another comment is, we talk a lot about equity in the school district. I was frankly disturbed to find out that teachers are being given the option, understandably, to stay home if they feel that it is unsafe. But staff, who are generally much less paid and are often more fragilely financially, I believe are being required to come back. I'm wondering if the board has any comment on how they feel, whether this is an equitable situation or not. I think that's it for now. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. To the board members, I'll also received a couple of questions in the chat. And so before we go to board responses, if it's okay, Rob, I'll try to just summarize some of these. One question is, will families be given another chance to choose whether they want in-person or online for the October 5th start date? Will there be a way to welcome the newest members into our school buildings, particular pre-K and K students? Can the start date be staggered? What about the safety of bus drivers? Why has the distant learning process not been explained? March was not good, and we're wondering what the next steps would be, including is attendance mandatory? It was stated we would all have choice, but this change, it seems only some have choice. Is the delay an effort to bring in a larger number of teachers? Again, and is there a way to get a refund on our school taxes? And how are we working on the equity issue regarding ESPs and other ICSD staff who are not given choice? So those are the comments that I received personally, in addition to what we've heard. So Rob, all you.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everyone, for your comments. And so board responses, go around the horn, whoever would ever like to start.
I mean, if no one else will start, I'm always willing to go out there. I thank everyone so much for their comments, and I just, you're not alone. I mean, I hear you talking about distance learning, and I'm doing it myself with 3 young children, and it's awful and it's impossible, but that doesn't mean that everyone isn't working so hard to make it as good as it can be. And every meeting that we've been in, everyone wants us to be back in person. It is the #1 thing on our list. And it really truly is about safety. And there are equity issues for all of us. I feel it in my own family. There's just no easy answers here. And, you know, as Sean said, and as we always say, you know, just keep the comments coming, we're listening. And just know that every conversation that we are having as board members, everyone is working so hard to just try to do what's right, not just by our students, but by our staff and our teachers and everyone in ICSD and our community as well.
I'll go ahead. I will echo what Erin said. You know, everybody on the board, all of our admin who have been working so tirelessly on this. We want children to be back in the building. We want the children of parents who opted for that to be back in the building. Now, we got a lot of questions that seem to have missed what Dr. Brown said at the beginning about the rationale for the delay. So I feel like we need to go over that again. I mean, I could go over it.
We'll certainly go over it again when we get to the calendar. So we can, that will be part of the discussion. Yep.
I will make some comments.
You're muted, Pat.
Good thing I'm not teaching online this semester. Very, very perceptive and important questions, and they are important for everyone. And tonight we saw, as we do with all of our comments, the range of concerns and the range of preferences and the range of people that we and the district are trying to serve. And I was so excited when Dr. Brown proposed choice. You know, there were people who, you know, when we first talked about opening up, we got a lot of, no one should open up. And then when we can't open up right now, it's, we need to open up. And these are different voices. I don't know that individual people have changed what they are most comfortable with, and we are trying to honor that. We are facing some difficulties with opening now. I think an awful lot of families and teachers and community members are very worried about what's going to happen when another 20,000 students come from around the country and around the world. Now, the numbers from the first 4,000 that were tested were superb. 3 students out of 4,000 and a faculty member and a staff member who were here before then. Our numbers are some of the best in the country. However, large groups, students, I'm really going to hope that Cornell students are a heck of a lot smarter and more responsible than Chapel Hill students. But this does give us some time to make sure that our community remains safe. That's important for our kids and our teachers and our families and everyone else who lives in that community. And I sincerely hope with all my heart that the combination of having more time and improving our HVAC and our ability to respond and test will make teachers feel better about going back and trying to meet the needs of these children who need them so much in person. That is my hope. It is a tough time. Thank you all for being here.
I would just like to echo that. And first, I just want to thank everybody who commented tonight. I'm just so appreciative of hearing everybody's point of view, and they're all really, really important. And you've raised many, many really important different kinds of issues that we need to think about. And I also feel confident that with a little bit of more time, we'll be able to work out some of the concerns that actually people are bringing up. I think one of the things about this process with COVID is that the landscape is continuously shifting. And so you think you understand it, and then something changes that changes your understanding and one's perspective. I also think that there was a very short time frame that the state of New York required of school districts to what they thought would be the guidelines and then what those plans would be. So that too is something that one has to consider. So I think in postponing, there would be my hope that we'll be able to think about what we can do and make something work in that in-person, that will make it work for kids to return who want to return into the classrooms. So that is my fervent hope that we'll be able to do that. And at the same time, balance all of the needs for the health and safety of our community.
Hi, folks. I just wanted to share that and to also echo what Ann shared. We're really trying hard to make everything we do ensure that everyone is safe and comfortable coming back to work. And we're trying to make this fit everyone where they are at right now, which is extremely difficult. Donna shared an important concern that everyone needs to be aware of, that we have a great deal of employees who are extremely concerned with returning to in-school instruction. When you talk to bus drivers, I'm not sure if everyone was present on our last meeting where ESPs shared their concerns. And we talk about equity and how we manage that to fairly bring folks back to school in a comfortable, safe environment. My biggest thing is, how do we do that? Because once something goes wrong, the forgiveness and the earnest energy to bring people back into a building goes out the window. And I know everyone wants things to return back to normal, but we are not in any semblance of normal last time I checked. I do understand everyone's concerns and everyone sharing what they shared with us, but how do we manage this to touch and make everyone comfortable at the end of the day is almost impossible. I really am truly happy that folks shared in a manner that was respectful, but I think that we're doing the best things possible to be safe and out of an abundance of caution. And they kept mentioning our numbers. Our numbers are where they're at because of the restrictions we've put in place as a community. And like Pat said, with 20,000 people coming back to this community, the factors shift. So taking some time to give things, to see how things lay out is not really the worst case scenario. Thank you.
Eldred, Sean.
I guess I can go. Nicole here. Good evening, everyone. I don't know where to start. There has been a lot that has been said. Everything that everyone has said is very valid and it's very real. I think a word that we've been hearing a lot tonight is safe. Safe means something very different for everyone on this call. There are 446 people on this call. What I find safe for my 3 kids might be very different for someone who's driving a bus, someone who's serving my children lunch, the ESPs who grab my kids out of my arms when they're crying and they don't want me to go to work. So I want to acknowledge that we are all trying, we're all working really hard trying to figure out what to do, how to create an equitable situation out of something that's very inequitable and something that's affecting people in very different ways. I'm supposed to be on 2 calls right now, but I'm here, so I understand how many people on this call are affected by the fact that we have to push school back. And it's very real that we don't have enough staff. And I know that my colleagues don't want to say that. I know the administration doesn't want to say that, but it's very real that we don't have enough teachers to come back to teach our children. As much as I want to see my kids in school so I can do my work effectively and I don't feel like I'm not doing my work effectively and I'm not parenting effectively, it's like we're not where we need to be in terms of numbers to be able to teach our children and keep them safe. I want to acknowledge that we have folks that are working at home, that are privileged to be working at home, but struggling because they're on a Zoom call and their kids are supposed to be on a Google Hangout. We have grandparents and legal guardians that are working really hard. And we're in an impossible situation. It is a very inequitable situation that we have ESPs and bus drivers and other folks that don't have the choice to not come back in person. That is very clear, that's very honest and very real. And there are no easy answers. So I want to thank everyone for being on this call, for sharing their own personal truth, but also I want to acknowledge that our administration team is working around the clock. All of my board members are on calls almost every single day trying to figure out how to move forward, how to support everyone, how to do what's best for kids. The fact that many children are regressing right now. Many of our children are more safe in schools than they are at home. And how do we do that? How do we do that in a fair way where no one is getting left behind? And I'm not sure where we need to be able to open up schools and understand that we have people that are working class, people that are poor, people who are not privileged like me to work from home and need their kids to be in school sooner than September 14th. And we're trying to work to get there. But right now we're not there. And it brings me to tears because I have plenty of friends who might not have a job because they can't wait till September 14th. But we really are trying our best. And I want you all to know that we're trying to do what's best for everyone, and there are just no easy solutions right now.
Thank you, Nicole.
Hello, everyone. This is Eldred. Chris, you may recognize where I am. Had to actually go eat. Imagine that. So I'm sitting outside your place of employment. The quality of the questions and the information people have asked for just verifies that I made the right decision to live in this community and stay here. These are high quality questions. These are exactly the kind of questions we are thinking about, we've asked the community to think about, and we wish our governing partners had done a little more to think about. The only way I can wrap my mind around the complexity of all of this is to come up with some huge bullet points or categories, if you will, into which I can assess and discuss some information. For me, the 3 I've concluded so far are safety and what that means. As Nicole just said, there is no one meaning. And I will say, for those of you who are more scientific minded, data heads, Alyssa, hi. You're asking me for information that we don't have access to. In other words, we don't just serve one student population. We serve a student population that the data says are low transmitters, and they actually find it more difficult to contract the disease. We serve other age groups for which the opposite is true. 0 to 8, safety in terms of them getting sick doesn't seem to be as great of a concern. Middle school and high school, it becomes a significant concern. And if they get sick and yet don't get seriously ill, no one scientifically has yet figured out what the long-term impacts are for that age group. I too have struggled with wanting data for safety. In other words, Our staff and our leaders, our superintendent, are working 16-hour days and have been doing so for the last 2.5 months to figure out a way to open these doors safely, because the impending sense of foreboding that I have about what will happen to our children if they don't come back increases daily. I'm not even sure what this community will look like if we don't get our kids back in our building in some reasonable time frame. That's a far cry from knowing what the statistical tipping point is. If we have 18 cases of infections in children between 12 and 14, what does that mean? If we have 3 staff members in building X of a certain age who contract the disease, what does that mean? What does it mean if one of them gets seriously ill? When I say our governance structure has not helped us with these numbers, I mean it. The governor's regional line in the sand, 9%, is, I want to say, ridiculous. We all know, everybody in this phone call knows our community would not accept that. What is the right number? What is the right number for each class that I just discussed? Those of you seeking those statistical answers, you may find yourself still seeking them as we move forward. That's something about safety. The next basket that I've created for my own mental health, and some of my board colleagues have helped me with this, is preparation. You heard about some of the significant challenges we have with getting the appropriate tools to make our buildings as safe as possible. There are also funding implications regarding safety. There are staffing implications regarding safety. There are budgetary impacts regarding safety. There are bargaining unit considerations regarding safety. All of those are, our staff members are, again, going through these numbers and possibilities and details that would overwhelm almost anybody on this call. Not everyone, but almost anyone, even if you think you want to know. So we have safety, and then we have the precautions, which are going to lead to the trust that Chris mentioned. How do we get our staff, how do we get our community to build up enough trust for us to open these doors, understanding that we've done the best we humanly can. The last basket for me is impact. And you've heard some of this discussed as well. The impacts are, in many instances, at cross purposes. Let's give you one example. Clearly, we cannot continue a virtual model and be the only institution of significance in this town that has so far resisted laying off, furloughing, sending home a single person. In fact, we were proud as we were going into the summer that we had just negotiated several new contracts. So we were actually paying people more. We were doubling the salary of certain members of our community, including people who are performing those essential services. We know our community needed this summer. So there's a competing impact. Nicole discussed, as a mother of 3, we've watched her try to perform more duties as a board member and try to maintain her quality parental interaction with her kids at home. And that's just on a call. I can imagine the competing interests that our parents have who are trying to work, who are trying to be good educational stewards for their children, and who are trying to be good parents. We know our teachers love our kids. And yet, as Nicole stated, a significant number of our teachers have said no. They are not willing to risk the impact of coming into the building to teach our children right now. But our children and their families want to come back. So these are balls in the air. Where they will fall after a month, we hope to be more certain and have more answers and have more clarity and have more safety procedures in place than we have now. That's the primary reason for us putting the stop on this now. None of us want this to happen. Let me assure you, nobody on this board wants to restrict children from learning in our buildings, because we know that's where the best learning takes place. And in the vast majority of student cases, that is where they are the safest. That is where they are loved. So work with us in those baskets. Ask questions and understand we may not have the answer. You may not have the answer. No one may have the answer about what specific statistics you're looking for that are going to determine whether or not our attempts to open and perform in-person education are valid. Thank you.
We're in a really bad situation. So a couple of quick things. I'm getting a number of private chat messages, and then I'll try to provide some feedback. People have asked very specific questions and are looking for very specific answers. Some of those the board will engage as we talk about the possibility of changing the academic calendar. Some of those are probably best asked during the required public forums that the Ithaca City School District will be holding on Thursday at 6 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. You can find more information on the ICSD banner about those times and dates. And I'm quite sure that we'll be putting out a press release to notify folks, various social media outlets to make that happen. So some of the questions will not be answered this evening. I just want to begin there. I also want to go back to something that Dr. Brown said. I've had the pleasure and privilege of knowing Dr. Brown since his arrival here in Ithaca. And this is the most, I don't want to say the most serious because that would be inappropriate, but the heaviest I have seen him with his heart. And this is after a number of various issues that would also make one feel the weight of what's taking place. There is no good option. There is no good decision to be made here. We are talking about people's babies. We're talking about my baby. A number of board members have children in the school districts or grandchildren. I'm a primary caregiver to our grandbaby and thinking about whether or not she goes back to school. So this is not a decision that we make in some sort of abstract idea. This is personal for all of us as board members and why we, again, volunteer and are elected officials in that regard. So I want to make sure that we sort of begin there. We are also in the midst of two pandemics, significant racial discord not seen since the 1960s that are challenging us in various ways, and a global health pandemic. My spouse and I keep having conversations that life is not normal. To try to pretend that we're going to be normal or have rational conversations, or for me not to give some patience, some grace, some forgiveness to people when I'm in a store and there's a little bit of tension. I have to remind myself that we find ourselves in quite possibly the most confusing time that we may have experienced, at least during my lifetime, as someone who's approaching half a century. Now, I say all that to give some context to what's been asked. Why are we at this moment in time thinking about the possibility of delaying school opening, complications with staffing and scheduling, recent transitions in mobility? We are, I would say, the penultimate college town, but I think we're actually number one. So we're the ultimate college town. And August 1st marks a significant influx of student population because of leasing. So one of the things that we're thinking about is what happens when you take folks, particularly young folks, from all over the country, all over the world, and bring them into a city of 35,000 permanent residents, and then you explode to about 80, 90,000 in schools in session. Yes, we're worried about what that data, that mobility, that influx looks like. We have to have conversations about our facilities. We hope we would be there. Supply chains have changed that. And some of the questions that other folks are asking. For board members, for our administration team, do we think it's equitable that not all folks were given choice? No, flat out, no. I don't think it's equitable. Doesn't change what happened, doesn't change how we'll move forward, but no, it's not equitable. And I'll have to reconcile what that means. How do we try to keep bus drivers safe? Phenomenal question. We're working on that daily. And I know that our central admin team have been asking this question in conversation with folks and experts both locally and all over the country. What does it mean for our cafeteria workers? Same question. What's it mean for our ESPs? Same question. And I say this as a faculty member who was also asked choice whether or not I would return to Ithaca College campus. So I had to face this question, and I decided that yes, I'll return to campus. I understand it means a change in what I do, a change in how I teach, a change in how I think. I had to reconcile all those options. So it's not, again, not things that we aren't thinking about on a personal level. So we may not be able to answer everyone's question tonight. What is the airflow rate? We probably won't be able to give you a question this evening. What are the metrics by which we're trying to make these decisions? I was on a Cornell earlier today with Dr. Brown and President Martha Pollack asking the exact same question from Cornell. What are the metrics by which you will find a disruptive shutdown? That was the language that was being used. We're exploring all this as a community. Ithaca College made the preemptive notion today that they would not bring students back for fall semester. Folks have probably been following the news. The University of North Carolina brought folks back, and within a week, they had to shut folks down. I know we're not North Carolina, I get that. And we're still bringing folks from all over the world into this small center city that the census calls a micropolitan statistical area. So I am pained that my 5-year-old grandbaby does not get to go to school September 10th. It hurts me on a personal level. I said to all my board members, I humbly think I'm a decent college faculty member. I am an extremely poor pre-K teacher. It was very abundant to me during the session that I cannot do my job and homeschool my grandbaby. It is an impossibility. So I understand that that's also a privilege that I even have the option to explore that. And for many of our families, it also means not going to work. This is not where we want to be. This is not where we want to be. So we will have more conversations about the specific questions that are asked, how we approach what we do, where we try to go. And what we're asking as a community is that we do it together. We are in a global health pandemic that no one either could have prepared for or that we did not prepare for. And here we find ourselves trying to find ways to move forward as a community in the best interest of everybody's baby. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm looking forward to my fellow colleagues, to the central admin team, thank you for your work, to the teachers, to our cafeteria workers, to our bus drivers, to our facilities crew, tirelessly putting folks' life on the line to make this happen. No good option, and here we find ourselves on how to move forward. So again, we'll explore some of this more as we actually talk about the academic calendar, but those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. Do I want to do this? Absolutely not. Will I support it? Most likely. Regrettably, most likely. So that's it for me, Mr. President.
Thanks, Sean. And I think we will move on shortly and quickly. Everyone's been very heartfelt, eloquent, and it's been great to hear from everyone, public and the board. I will be really quick. I guess I'm the longest serving board member, and I would just point back that we made a commitment 10 years ago, basically to change the world and make and change this district dramatically, that we would meet the needs of all kids in this community. And when we said all, we meant all, and we meant 100% graduation rate, and we would change the way this district dealt with the needs of all children in this community. That commitment has not changed. What the progress that we've made over the past 10 years, that has been dramatic. It has been amazing to the benefit of the kids of this community. That is why we serve. That's why I serve, as for the kids in this community. When we say that we're going to be different and offer choice, a distance learning at home choice, and also an in-school instruction choice, I am committed to making sure that we do indeed have choice. And we do have that option of being in school. And it is critical that we do so. able to preserve this district and much better for the future if we are able to provide that in-school instruction. So it is critical that happens. I am adamant that we be able to open schools in a safe way for staff and students. We had a highly successful summer program this year, the only district in the county to have an in-person summer program, 100 students, 100 plus students, 20 staff were involved. It went very well. It was a great dry run of what we can do this fall. There are issues at this point with being able to open up, but I am hopeful, and I know that we need to have our complete district open, both digitally and in person, in order to serve all the kids in this community. Otherwise, we are failing in our mission. I don't like failure. We need to be able to provide what we can do better than anyone else to all the kids in this community. So that is our mission. That is what we will do. We're gonna figure it out. And the next step to figuring it out is to get on to the business of the night, which is the academic calendar for this upcoming school year. So Dr. Brown, if you please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ainsley. I will turn it over to Ms. Talcott, who will walk us through some of the shifts that we've made to the calendar, and/or Mr. Van Kuren, who's been working very closely to tighten this up over the last couple of days. Ms. Talcott.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. Thank you, everyone who's here this evening. Thank you to our board members as well, and my teammates who are on this call. The shifts that we're proposing in this new academic calendar would bring all staff back on September 3rd still for professional learning. And that professional learning then would pick up again on September 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And then all students in the Ithaca City School District would begin distance learning on Monday, September 14th. That's the largest shift. So we've taken those professional learning days, those district-wide conference days that typically occur later in the year in October and in March, and shifted those for the beginning of the school year in order to allow for substantive professional development for all. Although we're providing a very robust professional development experience this month, we know that not everyone can access that, and we want to ensure that everyone can. Right? And then again, all students would begin distance learning on Monday, September 14th. The only other shift would be then that the March Caregiver Teacher Conference Day would be shifted to March 19th as opposed to the 18th, with that professional learning day being moved up. All other vacation days and the end of school would remain the same. Dr. Brown, would you like me to add anything else? Would you care to?
I think that covers it all. Thank you, Ms. Talcott. So, Ms. Ainsley, that's the recommendation we're putting in front of the board.
Go ahead, Amy.
I know there was a question about professional development, and I know that will be taking place. Would you be able to talk or speak to the topics or issues or focus of what that professional development will be offered to teachers and supporting staff during that time?
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Talcott and Ms. Grove. Go ahead.
Great. Obviously, we want to focus predominantly on distance learning and how to provide that to our young people as best we can. Of course, leveraging technology tools and how we utilize those in order to engage kids in really deep learning as they're creating, engaging with one another and with the world. Additionally, our focus this summer, so in addition to that as a focus, we have been focusing on culturally responsive and anti-racist teaching practices and integrated social emotional learning. What are the ways in which we're supporting our young people's mental health as we're getting ready to engage with them in these digital spaces.
Could I just ask a question in terms of this calendar? Lily, when you spoke, you brought us up to, the online learning that would take place in the beginning of the year, but come October, what do you expect in terms of the in-person? How will we be working in this time period towards the in-person option for children who need who?
Thanks. We're in the midst of pulling together a reopen ICSD team consisting of a wide range of stakeholders. We're asking folks within the Ithaca City School District, our educators, our staff who work within our spaces, and also students and families and experts, health experts in our community as well, to work together in order to really design the best options given what we have, right? The current situation that we have, in order to welcome as many young people back as possible. So we'll be engaging that group soon, and we are really looking for a representative group of folks who are looking for solutions and ways for us to get back into our physical spaces for, obviously after October 5th.
Lily, if you could expand on that a bit. As you say, there's PD beginning of September for distance learning. After that and prior to October 5th, looking at the calendar, will there be orientation periods for those who are going to contemplating and going back into high school, middle school, elementary schools for students and staff, families? I mean, how are we going to do that? The high school had a great video on their website, a day in the life at Ithaca High, but that I would think we would need to be much more robust in an orientation week, or however we're thinking about what it's like to be in a classroom at the various schools.
Thanks. Rob, there are a number of elements that you bring out, both internally that we have to work out. Obviously, we've spent basically since March figuring out many of these details, right, around how to return in person. Our summer school staff have done an exceptional job of actually putting them into action, right? So we would, of course, continue those plans and handle that training internally as we do. And then obviously connecting with our students and with our families and with our larger community through forums like this. If we're looking at coming back in person, we may be looking at some hybrid options for these community forums, right? And really focusing on the nuts and bolts of what this actually will look like and how we can do it well. So everything around, we talk a lot about culture, right? That's our first pillar of our reopening plan for a reason. And we also know that we have to build that culture together prior to coming back. So things like physical distancing and mask wearing and good hand hygiene. Folks have been practicing in our community for some time, but not in our physical spaces in larger groups. So we know there'll be some learning that'll have to happen there. And things like changing class periods, right? So 12 minutes between classes at the high school is different, right? When freshmen are being, there won't be bells, right? Freshmen will go first and have an opportunity to change their classes and then go from there. We know we'll have to do significant support. We'll put in place significant support, essentially professional development for our young people, right, prior to their return.
Right. These are processes and protocols that we've been working on all summer because the intent is to open up schools. And so this is already being worked on. It's just rolling it out prior to. I appreciate that. Other questions?
Rob, to that point, I want to reiterate again, folks putting in, and I know a number of folks do it all the time, 16 and 18-hour days, trying to explore staggered starts, rotating schedules, rotating days, how to minimize cohort and transitions. Our team has been on probably more phone calls than they care to recall about how to try to possibly do some things safely. A couple of places where folks can find some additional information about what we are thinking about doing would be the facilities committee minutes from just happened prior to this meeting. There was a presentation on how we plan on keeping our building safe, and the ICSD reopening plans. Folks may have various thoughts about that reopening plan, but it's a pretty detailed document. And I'm pretty certain, and Dr. Brown and Ms. Talcott, I apologize if I'm getting out ahead, that we are probably going to have to start a new FAQ page as well. That would be an updated FAQ page. And so for folks who do not have their questions answered this evening, please email again, folks. I'm quite sure we are working on these answers or have at least explored them. One of the beauties about living in a community in which some 25% of the population, I believe that's the number, has near a PhD, is that you're talking to folks who work for the CDC, not talking with the CDC. So we are getting information and advice at all points in time. So the new FAQ page, I'm sure, will help us try to think about what we're considering as well.
Sean, we already started it. Thank you.
If I can ask a few follow-up questions. One question that was asked earlier by one of our bus drivers in terms of what are we doing in terms of safety for them. If someone, Bob maybe, or Lily or Dr. Brown could speak to that, that would be great.
Yeah, Bob.
Sure, welcome everybody. I'll start off and I might ask Carrie to also jump in, but it's really, again, it's this layered approach that we're utilizing with our bus drivers. So obviously there's the document that every parent hopefully will fill out every morning attesting that their child is feeling well. And then we will have masks to give to children who don't have them at the bus stop. Also the likelihood, and this is where Carrie was really illuminating to me, the likelihood of contracting COVID from passing, even in a short distance, like passing as a child walks by the bus driver, if the bus driver has on his or her mask. It's about distance and duration. So it's a very, very small likelihood. Now, for students who, for whatever reason, either medical or other reasons, don't wear a mask on a particular day, there'll be a section on the bus where they can sit until they come into the school. And then we'll use restorative processes with the social worker, principal, parents to really explore how to get them to wear their masks appropriately and properly. We will also be venting the buses. So there's hatches, there's windows that will be open, there's fans that will be utilized to keep airflow moving. We're also going to install, I don't want to say plastic, but I can't think of the exact wording right now, a screen behind the bus driver to help reduce airflow, like you see them in like Wegmans and various places. So
plexiglass.
Yeah, it's not, for us, it's not actually plexiglass because that's not permitted on buses, but it's essentially that, but thank you. Polycarbonate. One of my colleagues just texted me, so thank you. So it's really, again, a layered approach. I don't think I left anything out there, but Carrie, jump in if I did.
Other questions, comments from the board at this time?
Carrie, were you going to add something?
No, just I thought there was an excellent summary. We're thinking through every detail, including those students who are physically unable to wear a mask and how we effectively social distance them on a bus. So as Bob mentioned, it's a very layered approach, thinking at a systems level and then at the level of an individual student and our individual drivers.
I just have one more comment to make in relationship to tonight's vote for the calendar. And I think in changing the calendar, it's my understanding and just that by postponing the time that we would begin in-person teaching, that the goal, that what we would be using this time to work towards that goal, that's my understanding. And of course, we'll revisit the conditions at that time, but that whatever we do now will be hopefully to accomplish and make that a better process. So I just wanted to clarify that that's my understanding.
Yes, and I think it's important to add, we were operating under an emergency closure last year. I can't wait to get young people back, but I equally can't wait to get our educators back. September will be, we've had some PD over the summer, but that was optional. But in September, that first day of PD is for everyone. So it'll be the first time since last March that we've had everyone together to be able to scale PD in a way where we can get better together and ensure that our young people are going to get the best digital and physical experience that we can provide. So just want to clarify that for folks who are wondering if we were doing anything over the summer.
Dr. Brown, thank you for that. Right, the goal is to try to get everyone together. And again, I want to remind folks, we find ourselves in a global pandemic, and the way in which we push forward is as a community together. Dr. Brown says, and I use this quote pretty regularly, conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. We may not agree on how we get there or the various means, but the goal is for us to try to do what's best by our community and what's best for babies. We have very good data at this point in time. We understand that. We know this is going to be a significant hardship for a number of people, both financially, social, emotionally. The list can go on. We recognize all of those things. Again, this is not a good option. And so the way in which we're thinking about it is that it provides us with the best opportunity to provide the best experience we can for our young people. Let me rephrase it, not we, it's how I'm thinking about it. So with that being said, I make a motion that we adopt the updated academic calendar for the 2021 school year. And I do so begrudgingly, but I still make the motion.
I second it.
Second.
Second by Moira. Second by Moira, begrudgingly. Moved, seconded. There's still opportunity to make a comment or question from anyone at this point. Nicole?
I do have
One
a
more.
question.
Sorry, Nicole.
Sorry, my kids are fighting or killing each other. One of my questions is, as it relates to virtual learning, I think most parents, guardians on the call could agree that it wasn't very clear if virtual learning was mandatory. Is there going to be information that comes out within the next week that outlines to parents if things are mandatory, optional? Will it be different for, say, pre-K versus middle school versus high school? I would just like more information to be able to give to parents tonight, guardians, around virtual learning and the requirements versus voluntary elements.
Yeah, these upcoming information sessions, Thursday at 6, Friday at 8, Friday at noon, we will be going through what the expectations are for synchronous and asynchronous instruction. So we plan to roll that out. Those sessions will be recorded, and I anticipate additional meetings and conversations by school to talk about what it's going to look like.
And Nicole, I'm still working with the Code of Conduct Advisory Committee with Dr. Bryman as well, to have some conversations about what some of those codes of conduct may look like in a virtual world, in a virtual realm. A number of things that we held on to as a prime example in our code of conduct, in our the name just left me. In our dress code says that you cannot have any face coverings, right? That is clearly an outdated model for where we find ourselves. And so we are trying to have some of those conversations as well. And Dr. Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine some of the questions that were being asked this evening, we are going to need our community to help us find the most appropriate answer. That some of them, the answers do not exist currently, and others we're going to need to be innovative in ways in which we can. And Nicole, that young baby is beautiful. Thank you for bringing some light into my life.
And I'm sure Nicole is going to be able to be on her next conference call shortly. Way to hang in there, Nicole. And it's great to see. But it's also great to see him in school, and I hope that happens soon. If there's no other comments at this time, oh, Nicole, you're in one piece. It's great to see. So I think we better go ahead and get this vote done and accomplished, because there is a finance work session still to come. But Tricia, the calendar has been moved and seconded. And Tricia, if you do the roll call, please.
Sure. Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Dragging, kicking, and screaming, yes.
Nicola Fave,
Begrudgingly, yes, as well.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichman,
Yes.
Patricia Wasley. Pat?
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you, Pat. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there. We do have to move on to the finance work session for those of you who are on finance, and I'll tag along for a while. We hope, and I will certainly, I keep sighing every now and then. I hope this is the last change to this calendar that we do. And I will be very happy as we work over this next month and a half to get us ready to go. And for both distance and in-person learning in this district, the best district, one of the best districts in the country. And if we can't figure it out, I'm not sure who can. But we will lead, as we always do, Dr. Brown, and we will make this happen. And we look forward to moving forward. So thanks, everybody. We're going to go ahead and leave this meeting. And there is a finance meeting for those who want to join. Thank you, everybody.